Greetings, folks, fans of the game, those who like it so much that it drives you insane. Hit that Wednesday slump in your week? Well, it's time to get up with me. And if you're feeling tapped out, brew some coffee this morning. It's like the human version of untapping your lands. It's important that you join me here today on the morning stream. As I say, fellow mages, happy hump day. And in the grand tournament of life, Wednesday is just your opponent trying to drag you down. If you think of the week as a grindstone that's got you grinding down, think of yourself as the grind clock just slowly making its way to the next play test day of Magic the Gathering. It's nice to have you with us here this morning. I've got an interesting stream here today. It's going to be a fun one because Brody, I hate to say it, folks, but I love to say it. I was right. Brody was right again. And we're going to get to that in just a little minute, my friends. It's time for a magical morning brew, so keep your decks shuffled and your coffee strong. Remember that your week feels like it's dragging along. Pretend you've got the elixir of immortality in your cup, and it's an endless cycle of rejuvenation when you join me here on the morning stream. But before we get into all of that, let's just warm up a little bit by taking a look at some AI generated magic cards here this morning. We like to take a look over at Robo Rosewater to see what's moving and what's grooving here in the morning. In the world of AI and morning Magic the Gathering cards, it's a good way to warm up and start our day and get a little bit of fun going here this morning. If you got a midweek dilemma or a deck that just won't behave, listen, it's time to troubleshoot it together. Wednesday might be an ultimate test of patience because the right sideboard, we can tackle anything. So let Brody's Morning Show be your sideboard tech for the midweek slump that is Wednesday as we grind closer, one day closer to the weekend where you, my friends, are going to have a good time. Let's head on over to Robo Rosewater to take a look at some AI generated magic cards here this morning. Let's get that up. And you know the rules. When we're looking at these AI generated magic cards, if the card is playable any way whatsoever, we're going to pass it. You'll hear this sound, the sound of the dinger, my friends. And if the card has got any non functional gibberish junk text on it, we'll fail it. You'll hear this sound, the sound of the womp womp here this morning. Let's head on over to Robo Rosewater and take a look at this here Magic the Gathering card. What do we got here? Oh, we've got just give me a quick second here. Let's fix this up for you folks here this morning. Wham bam shazam. Here we go. What do we got here? The Drake Dinger. Is this one going to get the dinger? Hard to say. This one, it cost you 2 black and 3 for a 3/3. And whenever you cast a spell with mana value 5 or greater, creatures you control get +1/+1 and gain vigilance until end of turn. It's an odd card here this morning. I think this one's just fine. Probably give this one a pass. Pass it. Are we going to rate this one? Nope, not today. Elvish Mangor. Had to give this one a second look. Thought it was Elvis Mentor at first, but this is the Elvish Mangor. You can choose modes on this sorcery card. It says either destroy target artifact, or destroy target artifact or enchantment an opponent controls unless that controller pays 1. It's got the same mode over and over again, but I don't think that prevents this from being a Magic the Gathering card. It seems like it could just get a little bit repetitive. Let's give it a pass. This one seems fine. And then the Called Deathlet, a small piece of death here this morning. This one. This little beauty here. This little beauty here says 3 green and 4. You get to get an 8/8. That's kind of big. It's a big one. I draft the otter. Kylan likes the otter. It's an otter card, right? Oh, we're navigating the Wednesday stream, and it looks like the weather outside is a bit unpredictable, just like a booster draft. And whether you're a fan of rain, of tears, or basking in sun's radiance, it's got the tunes and the tales to keep you in good spirits this morning. This collared Deathland is an 8/8 that's a Leviathan. It also has this awesome art on it that says, you win the game. He's got a ship, a couple of balloons here. When collared Deathlet attacks while you control an artifact permanent, you win the game. This one's straight overpowered. And it's also got remove all +1/+1 counters from each creature you control. Create 2/1/1 white soldier creature tokens. This one seems a little bit overcosted, but overpowered at the same time. You win the game. Functionally, it's okay. Have to pass it. It is overpowered. Do we get to rate this one or what? Nope. This one's just going to get a straight pass to the winner's circle. And that brings us to this one, the Goblin Collector, a gumball machine. All right, we're brewing up something special this morning. And we're not talking about a new deck. We're talking about AI generated magic cards here this morning. This one seems like it's got us stuck in a bit of an infinite loop, persisting to come back. This land card taps for 1 mana. And then you can even tap it to add 1 mana of any color and spend this mana only to cast creature spells. You may pay 3 life if you do draw 3 cards. Ooh, I like this. Spicy, spicy. Drawing cards is never a bad idea, especially in the world of Magic the Gathering. Only cost you 3 life to do it. How do you rate this? Fair, underpowered, OP, 3 life for 3 cards on a land. With the way power creep's going, let's call it OP. Why not? And then this one here, Casting of the Faith. This one's a black enchant. Cost you 1 black and 2 for this black enchant. This says creatures your opponents control get -1/-1. And whenever you cast a spell from anywhere other than your exile pile, you win the game? Ugh. Even worse. Hello, hello. Let's pass this one. Robert O'Brien tuning in here from K-Town. Nice to have you with us here this morning, Robert. Good to have you. We're casting of faith here this morning. Have faith in Brody in the stream here this morning when we bring you some Magic the Gathering fun into your day. Planeswalkers and Wizards tuning in from around the world. We're tackling your midweek mana slump by trying to bring you folks a little bit of fun. This one here is overpowered. And Bidstone's presence, bidding you adieu here this morning. A green and 2 for this enchantment saga. The first proc on it, it says 1. Tap up to 3 target lands. And then it's got this saga proc 2. You may untap up to 2 target lands. So for 3 mana, you get to tap 3 lands, and then the second time you get to untap 2 of yours. That actually seems kind of fine. Almost would imagine this in a different color, but perhaps it's fair. I say it's fair. Some people say it's underpowered. And then this brings us back to where we left off yesterday with some Yu-Gi-Oh cards. Wow. You know Brody's not going to be putting in some Yu-Gi-Oh cards for you this morning. It's the Magic the Gathering morning stock show where we talk shops and we talk Magic the Gathering cards and new cards that are coming out and getting spoiled. And if you've been tuning into the Magic show, if you wonder why on earth should I tune in? Well, do you like tracking the prices of Magic cards? Do you like checking the prices of new release cards that are coming out and how they interact with the market? Well, you can join me here on the morning show where we talk about it each and every day. And over the last couple of weeks, Brody was creating and crafting a list using our MTG Stocks premium account to create a watch list of potential reprint targets. And things are starting to have a little bit of traction here on the show. So we're going to revisit that list here this morning because I've got some interesting Magic the Gathering news by way of spoilers coming out of the new Thunder Junction set. So let's take a look at our potential reprint targets that we identified over the last couple of weeks because there's a card on there. In fact, it was the very first card. If you go back in the stream where we started this, waiting for a reprint list, this is where I want you to get the fun into your collection. I don't want you to overpay for Magic the Gathering cards. This world is a little bit crazy and a little bit mixed up, and it's a little bit unpredictable at times. But Brody had a hankering, had a notion. What does Brody know that other folks don't? Well, it's just a hunch, really. But there's a card that was spoiled that's going to be coming out, and there's some breaking news all about it, right? The world's largest bed sheet was just discovered. But we'll have more on that later as the story unfolds. The breaking news set for Thunder Junction was spoiled, and it includes a card that we were talking about over the last couple of weeks, and we included it in our potential reprint targets and cards to stay away from. So without further ado, let's just introduce you, folks, to Brody's MTG Premium Stocks membership. If you want to get a premium membership for yourself, you can use the affiliate code available in the stream description. If you folks want to save yourself 15% off, this is a way to help you on your Magic the Gathering finance journey where you can get the fun into your collection and get it done here on your own. But if you don't want to spend the money, honey, you can just join me where we talk the prices of Magic the Gathering cards. And this is a list that we started just a couple of weeks ago, and it's called Watched List Brody's Waiting for Reprint Targets. We were talking about these cards just a couple of weeks ago, and it all started with a card called Mind Break Trap down here on the list. There's a card that Brody was very, 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 very desperately wanted to get this card into our collection. Mind Break Trap. Now, if we were looking at the price of this card previously, the card has quite a hefty price tag, especially only being printed once in Zendikar, and that's why, yes, I do like these things, and that's why we added it to our waiting for a reprint list. The Mindbreak Trap showing up right here. This is a card that's very powerful in Commander. It's also kind of a free spell, but don't forget it has a backup mana cost that you can just always pay for 2 blue and 2. You can always pay this mana cost without triggering the trap if you need to. 4 mana is not that hard. It's a little bit less than the Force of Will natural mana cost, but nevertheless, the Mind Break Trap has this wonderful text on it. It says, if an opponent has cast 3 or more spells this turn, you may pay 0 rather than paying Mind Break Trap's mana cost, and you can use it at instant speed to exile any number of spells on the stack. So this is the very first card when we got our premium membership, and we were discovering it together just a couple of weeks ago. This is a card that I had my eye on because I really wanted to run a few more free counter spells in my Commander deck, and this card fit the bill. I don't have it. I currently don't own it, and I was looking at the price of this card to see how much this card is worth. But it's worth over $175 in the foil version, and it's only had one printing going back to the Battle for Zendikar. So we added this card to the list because I thought, you know what, I don't want to pay this really expensive price for this card that has only one printing. And with the news that came out yesterday, the breaking news, folks, we've done it. It's all come full circle. Brody has predicted the future for you folks to save you folks some money. So if you guys folks want to tune in and join me here on the morning show when we discuss the prices of Magic cards, this is a perfect example why. Just a couple of weeks after starting the reprint targets watch list, the Mindbreak Trap has been spoiled in the breaking news set and will be getting a reprint. Now, keep an eye on the prices of this card. It's $75. That's sort of the pre-order price. But let's take a look at the Zendikar version of this card. This one's 76 and it's already starting to soften in price. Now, if you head over to a couple of places like Star City Games, you can order this on pre-order, but it's sold out in one day. So if you're one of those folks who follows the Magic the Gathering world and you tune in with me here, you would have seen this coming and you'd have said, hey, that's a potential reprint target that Brody and the team was talking about just a couple of weeks ago. And this card was expensive. You could order it here on pre-order for only $29. So If you want to get this card into your collection, the Mind Break Trap, here's a perfect example of a card that we were just going to be patiently waiting for a reprint. And we've already seen the prices at face to face come down about 40 bucks since the spoiling of the breaking news version of this card. So happy to say things are working well here this morning. And in general, with the Magic the Gathering morning stream, it's a perfect example of why I like to do the show, because there's some of the cards that I have my eye on and I just don't want to FOMO in to getting this Magic card. This card, this card's a buy. If you can get it at pre-order prices at 30 bucks, or you can keep your eyes over the vendor shop to see if they have a restock on pre-order. The pre-order selling price is around $29.99 and could go a little higher, but nevertheless, we're going to see some softening in the price of the original Zendikar, a card that desperately needed a reprint so that we can get it into a collection. Keep your eye out for this card. It'll be available sometime soon, and with some new copies available out in the world, this might be a time to pick it up. All right? All right. Thank you. Once again, let's see what else is on Brody's interest. So the Mind Break Trap, this is the watch list of cards that we're waiting and watching to see if they get a reprint. And the Mind Break Trap is the first one to come into total fruition. We've got a full recap. And if there's any cards that you folks think that are a little bit overpriced in this current market that you want to get your hands on, that we want to just like pump the brake, hold. You want to put a hold on one of these cards by it's funny because I was at a tournament over the weekend, and our Mind Break Trap became super relevant. One of the folks in our play group said, "I'm going to add that card to my cart and order it right now." And I said, "Well, I do the same, except I'm waiting on a reprint." So follow your own advice. And if you got a hunch, sometimes it's nice just to wait it out and see if that comes to fruition. We got the crystal ball here this morning, of course. Those of you who are tuning with me know exactly what we're talking about here. So let's do a little recap here on the list here, waiting for a reprint. What are some, if you've got any more suggestions of cards just like the Mind Break Trap that we've been waiting for a reprint to be announced that we should add to this list, that you want yourself and the viewers to know, hey, bro, I want to get this card, but I don't want to pay too much for it. Let's sit and wait, because eventually this sucker is going to get reprinted and I can get it a whole lot cheaper. I got the Ancient Cup and Dragon and all the Commander Legends Battle for Baldur's Gate Ancient Dragons, Auntie's Hovel, Calling the Weak, Dockside Extortionist, and Dust to Dust. Edgar Markov, Fierce Guardianship, another card that will hopefully see a reprint if you guys haven't picked it up yet. We got Mind Break Trap, of course. This is funny because this is my inspiration for this entire list, because it was a card that I wanted and it was first to go on it. So it's nice to see that we're kicking things off nicely in 2024 by getting some predictability in the Magic the Gathering markets. If you stay with this game long enough, you can kind of get a feel for the reprint cycles and the timing of some of these reprint targets. And if it's been too long and it's getting a little long in the tooth, it's safe to say that any of these cards are not safe from a reprint. Orcish Bowmasters, Shoulder the Apocalypse, the Meat Hook Massacre, the One Ring, Void Winnower, Vorinclex, the Monsters Raider, and Wander Vine Hub. So if this looks good, we'll leave it as is. But if you guys have some other suggestions, or we're carrying on down the stream today and we note some potential reprint targets, I'm going to tell you folks just to hold. We'll add it to the list, and then we'll see what the future brings. Being patient in time in the market is better than trying to time the market. Sometimes things come along and work out just like that. All right. Let's got some Magic the Gathering news here this morning. And here's another card that I'm very, very, very happy to see, because I was going to the Pioneers Trio competition just a couple of weeks ago with Dustin Cullet Hall, and I picked up a card that I was experimenting with. And it's not Pioneer legal, but I did like the card. It's Valky, God of Lies. So I have to check my cart, but Brody went and picked up, and I ordered a couple of copies. I think a full play set of Valky, God of Lies. It was about $5. So I woke up this morning and I saw this article. It says MTG Planeswalker card spiked due to busted Thunder Junction combo. So this is the time where spoilers are coming out with new sets, and we've got a bunch of them coming up this year. So some folks think that there's too many products in Magic the Gathering. And myself as well. I think there's too many products coming out and I can't participate in all of them. But what I can do is I can watch the secondary market and I can try. Valky is not Pioneer legal. No, he's not. I thought he was. So I actually picked up a playset and is Valky Pioneer legal? Valky is Pioneer legal. Okay, he is. But he didn't make the cut. There's a bright light. There is a bright to light deck that plays it. Okay, well, I stand corrected. I bought the card, and now that you mention it, I bought the card. I wanted to put it in the deck, and I think I ended up putting it in my commander deck instead. But when we were playing the breakout deck, when we were organizing the breakout deck for Pioneer, Justin Collahall advised me. He said the the Valky card doesn't make the cut. We're cutting it. So we cut it. So maybe that's why my mind was thinking that it's not Pioneer legal. I have a tendency to do that, is pick up cards that I think are legal without checking the legality, and then they end up being banned. Valky stonks, right? There's Dustin there. Tell the folks in the stream. I picked up the playset of Valky and I showed it to Dustin. I said, "What about this for 2 man?" And he goes, "Nope, it doesn't make the cut. We're not playing it in the Pioneer breakout deck." So that was the logic behind buying Valky. We were experimenting with a few deck lists. I stand corrected. Pursuit of Knowledge is right. It is Pioneer legal, but it didn't make the cut for our Jund build. That's right. Thank you for keeping me on target here. The knowledge is real. Thank you, sir. So new cards are going to break him. The new cards. Okay, so I picked up a couple of I could pick up a couple of copies of the Valky, and then I woke up this morning, and this is like what I said. Just a little segue into the chat here this morning is that like with the new sets coming out, you don't necessarily have to jump on and participate and open packs of all the new cards coming out in the new sets because they're going to be available quite easily into the future. But what I like to do when these sets come out and get spoiled is look for card interactions that are unique and make good use of some cards that were previously printed. And then you can hopefully get the fun into your collection before the prices go up. If you can see some of these card prices and these card interactions happening before they get spoiled, because they usually make their way into MTG articles where people are talking about them and then the price go up. So I'm sitting on a playset of Valkyries. I don't need to pick this card up, but it's quite fun for me because just like the Archive Trap, a card that I decided to stay away from is now seeing a reprint, so I'll probably be able to pick that up for cheaper, and you can too. So let's dive into this article and see what's getting busted with Valky and the Planeswalker that's making headlines. Just like a corduroy pillow, Magic the Gathering players have spotted a broken interaction between Magic the Gathering card, an old one, and a new Thunder Junction card mechanics, creating a price spike. The Magic the Gathering card Valky, the God of Lies, is spiking in price. It's gone from $5 to $9 in just a week. And while the foil variant of the card is up over 300% from $5 to $21, according to NPG Goldfish figures, the reason for the card's price spike doesn't seem to be stopping just yet. Lies on the reverse side of the double face card. Now, disclaimer, I bought the cheapest version of Valky that I could find because I was going to Pioneer, and for me, when I'm building new decks and if I'm trying to play a new deck in any format, I've found this is why I say real estate is always a good investment. I found that the toughest part of changing formats, whether it's modern, pioneer, or standard, is the mana base. Even legacy. A legacy mana base is tough to come up with cash wise. So, what I like to advise you folks is to park your money in real estate a little bit at a time. A couple of weeks ago, we had some disagreements in the stream where I told people to buy the artifact lands, like the Ancient Den and the Seat of the Synod, a couple of artifact lands from Mirrodin block. Those are a couple of examples of some lands that are fairly cheap right now. And if you pick them up now for, just a couple of bucks, even if you just buy one of each of them slowly over and into the future, say, or if somebody's got a trade that they want to make, and they've got one of those artifact lands, even though it's not like hot on your list of cards that you want to play right now, it's not a bad idea to maybe throw that into some trade fodder and say, hey, yeah, I'll take an artifact land here or there for my for the trade. Maybe you just need to top up a trade with one of the folks you're trading with, and like add a couple bucks to make up the difference. So I always advise getting land cards because it makes up the lion's share of the mana base. So when I was picking up the Valky, I didn't want to spend too much money on cards that I wasn't sure we were going to play. So I did just buy the basic Valky. I didn't buy the foil version. And it's similar to when I was looking at Archive Trap and the Trap cards in 2017. I picked up the Archive Trap, but I didn't pick up the Mindbreak Trap. And looking back, I think, man, I would have done myself a real favor to pick up one of these foil versions because that card is going to lead the price charge. So I'm going to have to compare and see which variants of the Valky card are actually leading the charge here. And we'll take a look at it here on the morning show just to see how well the bro did on just the basic Valkys that I picked up. It would stand to reason that the premium versions. And so I guess the lesson here is if you're thinking about speculating on a card and you're looking at the price and you're like, I think this card might be good. I think it might be good in the future. Sometimes if there's no real foil premium, the foil premium is negligible, just a couple of dollars. Sometimes it's worth spending the extra couple of bucks to get the foil version because if some kind of a card interaction happens that makes the card even better, then you're standing with the best version of the card in your hand. Goedemorgen. Goedemorgen vanuit het Netherlands. Mr. Arjen Brandenburg coming to us on the stream, the ambassador of the MTG Stocks Desk, bringing us a little bit of greetings here this morning. Untapping your lands this morning and filling your coffee cup. Planeswalkers and Wizards tuning in this morning for the midweek slump on a Wednesday. But don't worry, we've got you covered. We've got plenty of spells and cards that will help you get over the hump of Wednesday. Let's tap into some energy here this morning, shall we? Tibble was previously a major threat thanks to MTG Modern players cascading for 2 mana Valky, then choosing to play the 7 mana Planeswalker for free instead. This trick is deemed such a problem that Wizards altered the way Cascade works just to stop cunning players from cheating out Tibalt. But thanks to new mechanics debuting Outlaws of Thunder Junction, turn 3 Tibalt may well be back. It's about the plot mechanic, a new mechanic which lets players exile the card from their hand and cast it later on a turn without paying its mana cost. I think you see what's going on here. We can plot the Valky card. Well, Valky Tibalt obviously doesn't have a plot. There are Thunder Junction cards like a new 2 mana Jace Planeswalker that can plot any non land card that costs 3 or less mana and target Valky with an ability like this. And the next turn you can cast Tibalt for free. The new Jace, I like this card. I liked it when I saw it. I want to play it in turns. And it's quite interesting to have a 2 mana Planeswalker. On the downside of this card, you can't cast it on your first, second, or third turn, but you can get your Tibalt out depending on the spell target that you choose. This interaction works the way we think it should. Well, need the Thunder Junction release to be sure, but when the deck that could become a major threat in the modern format once again, in which case expect this spike to get even more dramatic. However, it's equally possible that Wizards spotted this issue already and will introduce some sort of a caveat that prevents this exploit, which in case presumably Valky will drop back down again. So maybe hold off on buying this card. For more price spike stories and some Universes Beyond crossover magic as a follow commander, price dive into the spike for Magic the Gathering, Doctor Who, and Cyberman cards. So like we were tracking the prices of Magic cards, and this is a function that Arjun added to the MTG Stocks premium account where we can create different binders to track different Magic cards for different speculatory purposes. A couple of weeks ago, well, just to recap for you folks, we started a binder that said potential reprint targets. The first card on that list was the Mindbreak Trap. As you can see it here, we added it to the list. And now with the printing or the spoiling of Mindbreak Trap coming back in the breaking news set, it's happy to say that this MTG Stocks premium account where we get to track and make a watch list on cards to stay away from that are potential reprint targets is working out quite nicely. So thank you very much. And we'll be in touch with Arjun over the next few months to bring some suggestions. That was a suggestion that the Brody, Alfonso, and the viewers here thought, you know what would make this MTG premium stock membership even more useful is if we could create separate binders for different types of cards that we want to track, because we're tracking card prices for different reasons. Cards we want to stay away from that could see a potential reprint target, cards that we've got on our watch list that are a potential buy. And if you want to make a prediction on where you see Mindbreak Trap setting after this reprint, you want to make a prediction on where you see Mindbreak Trap settling after this reprint. I think already the vendor stores have seen a tick down in price of about $40. I think the original Zendikar version in the foil variant is not going to take too much of a haircut. In fact, I think it's going to stay strong because it's the original printing. And we've seen that happen with Magic the Gathering cards in the past, where the original foil version, and a good example of that is the Gemstone Caverns. The original foil version seems to hold pretty strong, and it might just level out for and go east to west for a period of time. So I don't think that the foil version of the original Zendikar Mindbreak Trap is going to take too much of a price hit. It might just stabilize over the long term and just stop spiking in price, because there's an absolute alternative to folks. I think the Zendikar variant and the non-foil variant and the new premium version that just got spoiled, the breaking news version, I think those two will probably find parity. I think they'll probably settle in around the same price, within 10 to 15% of each other over the long haul. That's my prediction. I think they will stabilize, and they will somewhat uh they will converge price wise. I think that it'll soften the price of the original Zendikar non-foil version, and then the price of the new printing will slowly come up, and then the two of them will sort of maybe bond together in a price channel, in a price parity for this foreseeable future, until over the long haul, if we don't get another printing of this card in, say, a secret layer, it's hard to say if we see another reprint of this card. But I think right now the pre-order prices from Star City Games is $29, and they're already ordered out of stock. So this gives a little bit of a indication of how much support there is for this card, how many players want it. If there's a lot of players that share the mindset like I do, that are like, I really want to get this card, but out of all the cards that are available on pre-order for $29, you can get I've already put a notification in to let me know when there's a restock on this card, because this price of $29 for pre-order seems pretty darn good. So this is a pre-order price. That means that the stores are going to have to open a lot of this product in order to fulfill their pre-order. So they pulled it. It was so hot that people wanted it, so they pulled it, and they said, "Okay, no more pre-orders for Mindbreak Trap because this card is so hot. Everybody wants it. We're going to have to open a boatload of product." So I'll wait to see if there's a reprint or a restock on this. $29 is too high, in my opinion, for this card. Yeah, it's a very playable card. It's very good. Let's just you think it's too high, Dustin? Well, Dustin's pretty good voice of reason here. So let's just take a look at the Zendikar version. Yes, the Zendikar version is $299. Very expensive, and this card's continuing to soar. This card is a hold. If you have it, don't get rid of it. It's going to remain playable and remain good for some time. It's not going anywhere. And it's just another case in point for this one is, let's look at the Gemstone Caverns. And this is a card that was reprinted on the list a couple of times. The list version is $50, but the Time Spiral foil, the very original one, just like the Mindbreak Trap, it stays strong in the foil original version. So I think cards like this one is softened in price. I think we'll still see the price of the Mindbreak Trap in the original version stay strong. The non-foil version also try to achieve a little bit of parity, and we'll see how many copies get released in the wild for the foreseeable future of the new set. What else we got for articles here this morning? Got some good ones here. I'm going to check the stock desk to see if we got a new article coming out this morning. We had a great read with Harvey McGinnis yesterday, talking about an introduction to alpha beta. And I've got an interesting article here that I want to check with you folks here this morning. MTG Big Score cards hose tier 1 standard strategies. All right, hosing the stream here. Outlaws of Thunder Junction is a rather strange set with regards to how the bonus sheets are handled. And the breaking news bonus sheet function quite similarly to other bonus sheets, such as the Enchanting Tales subset Cards of Wilds of Eldraine. These cards are exclusively reprints that, despite showing up in a limited environment, only remain tournament legal in formats that they already are allowed in. So don't worry, no one will be casting Oko the Thief of Crowns or Mana Drain against you in Standard. However, the big score cards from Outlaw Tungsten Junction will be Standard legal, and even these cards feature an alternate expansion symbol. They will be introduced in the format. This group of cards are somewhat reminiscent of March of the Machine, the Aftermath, but can be found in play boosters and Outlaws of Thunder Junction nonetheless. Today, a bunch more of these cards were spoiled, and there's a nice mix of reprints along with some new cards to talk about it. So let's go. Pest Control. This is a card that I thought was quite interesting. It's a 2-mana board wipe for mana value 1 or less permanents. This card seems really good. Some folks say, why is it got cycling on it? I think cycling gives it an upside. It's in the mythic slot. It's an Orzhov card. It's 1 black and a white, and you destroy all non-land permanents with mana value 1 or less. You wanted a way to get rid of your opponent's dockside extortionist treasure tokens or tokens in general. This thing will do it for you. It'll also get rid of a lot of mana dorks, 1-drops, Birds of Paradise, Lana War Elves, and any treasure tokens, clue tokens, or food tokens that your opponents are greedily putting into play. So the pest control card, this card, I would buy this card. This card seems good long term. I would maybe even pick up a premium version of this card. I'm wondering what its pre-order pricing is. Pest control, do we have pricing on it? Pest control, the big score. This one here, no pricing on this one just as of yet. So we'll wait to see where this one settles around in the mythic version. All right. First up, we got this extremely efficient board wipe of sorts, destroying only non-land permanents with mana value 1 or less. It's an hour effect, but as a handful of strategies that may get completely blown out. Convoke Shells and Standard and Pioneer are certainly at the top of that list, and these decks rely high volume of 1-drop creatures to produce artifact tokens, such as the Thraben Inspector, and then the Gleeful Demolition, and then there's another Novice Inspector, which is pretty much a copy of the Thraben. Gleeful Demolition is helping you convoke out Venerated Loxodon and Knight of the Air and Eos, much like Temporary Lockdown. Pest Control cleans up all of these small creatures and tokens, missing out 2-drops that can be a big deal in some matchups. So if you want to synergize this, this card is insane in multiple formats. It's quite good, isn't it? I'm so glad you joined us here. It's nice to have a new commenter. The Pursuit of Knowledge. I was happy to see you here returning to the stream. So I hope you got something out of it. I hope you have a good time, and I hope you have some fun. So please and thank you for joining us, any new viewers alike. This card is very powerful. I think it's going to see some build-around mechanics. If you're playing 2-drops, you can stay away from the 1-drops. Much like Chalice of the Void, a card where you play Chalice on 1 and then you don't play 1-drops in your deck, this card can actually do some damage. Much like Temporary Lockdown, Pest Control cleans up some of these small creatures and tokens, and it misses the 2-drops, which can be a big deal in some matchups, and can also utilize this effect to turn on the draw against Convoke. If you don't have to worry about enchantment removal spells, you can always cycle it away in single situations where you don't need it. Some folks had debate. They said the card's too narrow, but I think, and it's in a mythic rarity, so why does it have cycling on it? Well, early in the game, or maybe even late in the game when it's a dead card, cycling is a nice option to have. Let's take a look at this card here. Almond Path Journey, the enchantment for a green and 3 that says Journey enters the battlefield, search your library for up to 5 land cards and have different names and exile them and shuffle. At the beginning of your end step, choose a card at random, exiled with Almond Path Journey, and put it onto the battlefield tap. Some more land ramp. This seems quite good in a lands build. If you're playing, take it easy, Mr. Robert O'Brien. Nice to see you. Enjoy your day. Have a great midweek. Happy Hump Day. Omen Path Journey, a good card in ramp. I think I'd probably include this in a lands build in Commander. I'm trying to build a Commander lands deck. I really am. That's something that I want to do and have been wanting to do for some time. And it's very selective on the cards that you can choose to learn how to do it. I want to play something that's got like 50 something lands. And this is a consideration considering we want to play cards like Burgeoning that allow us to put extra lands onto the battlefield. The Curse of the Hothouse, another card that lets you put lands onto the battlefield, perhaps from the graveyard. You got Mending of Dominaria, and the Omen Path Journey is a way to get those lands straight out of your deck and put them into the battlefield one at a time. Combined with Horn of Greed, that says every time you play a land, you get to draw a card. this card can be quite good. We got the unique source of ramp that seems well suited for Commander, and there's a few different ways to utilize this card. And first is to simply use it as a ramp source, and every turn for 5 turns, you get to put a land onto the battlefield tapped. Now, this alone is strong, even if you're simply grabbing various dual lands. There's things that are interesting that you can factor in when you're using utility lands. And Omen Path Journey can be a random in the sense that you may not get the land you want put on the battlefield right away or search for because it picks the land at random. But you have to, all the agency outside of this, you want to use Omen Path Journey to search for your Dark Depths combo and your Thespian stage. It's guaranteed an elite setup in 2 turns. Even searching for Glacial Chasm is nothing else can be as strong in certain circumstances. What makes Omen Path Journey so powerful is its flexibility. And if you have lands and you want to grab a bunch of them, otherwise, you can use it as a tutor of sorts in some decks to thin it out. You may even be able to blink Omen Path Journey and keep the lands flowing. This world is truly your oyster with the Omen Path Journey. Lotus Ring? What did I miss here? All right. Direly needed a $75 reprint's been confirmed. Lotus Ring is a 3 mana indestructible artifact equipment that says enchanted creature gets +3/+3 and has vigilance and tap sack this creature at 3 mana of any color. Where do we see this thing first? It's a funky card that clearly references the power of the Black Lotus, and in this case, you have to jump through some hoops to get your mana, but though you have to pay for the equipment and pay 3 mana to equip it onto a creature. But then when you sacrifice the creature, you get 3 mana, which is huge cost, and of course, you are able to abuse it. Fortunately, cards like Pure Steel Paladin can lend a hand. What's this guy? Is this the guy that says equip cost 0? This is a card that was on MTG stocks as a penny stock. This card's as a premium pickup, rather. This is a card that's been trending down in price and has never been cheaper. This is a card that I think is now the time to pick it up. It works well in hammer time, and as long as you have metalcraft, equipment you control has 0 if you can control 3 or more artifacts. So this card is definitely a pickup. There's plenty of ways to use it, and moving into the future, this could be quite good, especially with this card, the Lotus Ring. Pure Steel Paladin lends a hand in equipping the ring. If you've got a large board for creature tokens and a couple of other artifacts lying around, you can use the Lotus Ring in conjunction with Pure Steel Paladin as a mega ritual of sorts. Even cards like Forensic Gadgeteer that can reduce the equip cost for Lotus Ring can even do the trick, but you just need a sizable board and some big stuff to cast it. And there's some cool combos that can be had with Lotus Ring if you, for instance, use the Fervent Champion. This one here, this is a funny card. I really wanted this card to be good. And it was from I kept opening it in the Eldraine set. This 1/1 first strike haster. It says whenever champion attacks, another target creature that's a knight gets +1/0 until end of turn. And equip abilities you activate that target the fervent champion cost 3 less to cast. So maybe this card is getting a little bit better. Maybe there's a play case for the fervent champion. I could see a tick up in price. I know I've got plenty of copies because this was a bulk rare that I kept opening in Eldraine. And now it seems that there's a use case for this card. So it never hurts to hold on to that bulk for 2 to 3 years before you start pitching it away and thinking it's got no value. What else we got? We got Cole, the Forge Master. The Forge Master is a Boros card. It says whenever another token that's equipped dies, if it was enchanted or equipped, you return it to the owner's hand. The creature tokens you control that are enchanted or equipped get +1/+1. Now, myself, I think this is quite interesting because I looking at Commander and even the Pip Boy 3000 and some equipment cards that would go on some cheap commanders like Rograx, Son of Roga, or some of the kobolds that are out there that cost 0 mana. You're already using Rograk as a sack outlet to get things like calling Ritual onto play to trigger Impact Tremors, and perhaps putting the ring on them to get a little extra mana ramp is another choice that you can make when building a commander deck. You can generate infinite mana very easily with this ring and start by equipping the ring to Fervent Champion, which costs 0 now, thanks to the Fervent Champion's inherent ability. Then you sacrifice it for 3, triggering Cole to return the champion to your hand, and then you get to cast it again for 3 floating mana that you once got and equip it once more and rinse and repeat this. And it could be cool to see what other combos players come up with in the coming week. So a couple of cards like the Fervent Champion. This card, while it's cheap, I don't think it's worth more than a couple of bucks. I'd say this card is a buy. Let's take a look here. Fervent one. Fervent Champ. I don't think it's more than $1. Can't be very much. Fervent. Can't spell here. Fervent. Fervent C. The Fervent Champ. The champ is here. Hey, 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 folks. The champ is here. Fervent Charge. No, Fervent Champion. Here we go. All right. First strike whenever it attacks. This thing's 38 cents. Fairly cheap. You probably already have it if you opened any of the Eldraine set. Simulacrum Synthesizer. This card's an artifact in blue. And then there was another artifact that is legendary that I think is going to be quite good long term. It'll give us some time to see how good this card's going to be. But this one costs, good morning, Sunshine. Card costs you 1 blue and 2. And it's an artifact that says when Synthesizer enters the battlefield, you scry 2. Whenever an artifact with mana value 3 or greater enters the battlefield under your control, you get a 0/0 colorless construct artifact creature token with when this creature gets +1/+1 for each artifact you control. This is sort of the same type of construct that you're going to get when you're using Urza's Saga. It gets bigger and bigger. And it also is the same type of construct that Urza himself will bring you. Simulacrum Synergizer is definitely one of the new big score cards with the most constructive potential. In standard, we've seen an artifact deck succeed in the past utilizing cards like Thran Spider and the Mike Stone and the Meek Stone. To pull ahead and grow your artifact count, Simulacrum Synthesizer is a great win condition in conjunction with these cards. It's credible to see the Skitter Beam Battalion too, netting you 3 huge construct tokens from the synthesizer. This is an interesting card. Skitterbean Battalion is 9 mana construct with prototype 5. Get a 2/2 Trample Haste. You can cast it for its cheaper cost for 5 mana, but Trample Haste is a 4/4 for 9. You get 2 copies of it. I don't know how much of a fan I am of that card, but in older formats like Modern, this card works well in conjunction with Affinity payoffs. It gets you to play the Simulacrum Synthesizer, then follow up with Frogmite. Sojourner's Company and Mirror Enforcer, well, without investing any additional mana, can get you to build a big board out of nowhere. Simulacrum Synthesizer will surely be a commander staple on top of this, rocking almost right along Urza Lord High Artificer. And another reprint that people are just like, I keep seeing people triggered over this card. They're saying, oh no, Rest in Peace is back. But finally, we've got a top tier reprint that may finally help shake things up in Standard. It's the latest Magic Standard challenge in this past weekend. This is going to be awesome because this is the card that's making headlines and keeping people scratching their heads saying they wish they didn't print it. But Rest in Peace has been a sideboard staple for many years. And if you ever wanted to play it, now's the time to pick up a copy once this comes out. It says when it enters the battlefield, you exile all graveyards. And if a card or a token we put into a graveyard from anywhere goes to exile instead. If you've got a top tier reprint that finally helped shape things up in the Standard world, it's the latest Magic Online Standard challenge this weekend. Tamer World, Solar's Rage, Deckmate make up the entire top 4. And the power of Aftermath Analyst is being on full display. This card's a quite cool card that I want to play in a lands build when it comes time to doing it. What happened? The Aftermath Analyst is a card that has an idea behind it to maximize lands from Streets of New Capenna like Broker's Hideout that go into the graveyard. Aftermath Analyst. Let's read this card. I like this card. 1 green and 1. This card is a buy. It's an uncommon, a great uncommon from the Murders at Karlov Manor set. It's a 1/3. It's an elf. So the Nissa, the Resurgent Animist, can pick it up out of your deck. And when it enters the battlefield, you get to mill 3 cards. It's got this 4 mana ability, which is the same cost as the card we were reviewing earlier, that gets you 5 lands out of your deck. You sack this and return all land cards from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. The idea being that this deck is used to maximize lands from Streets of New Capenna. And any lands that go into the graveyard are eventually going to end up back in the battlefield. And from there, Aftermath Analyst, World Soul's Rage can bring back a bunch of these lands from your graveyard all at once, giving you extra life and ramping you in the process. Even though World Source Rage can be as useful as a fireball effect at the end of the game in one hit, as strong as this deck is, it's quite reliant on the graveyard. Aftermath Analyst and World Source Rage is even a memory deluge become a lot worse in the face of Rest in Peace. Let's read this card. Memory Deluge. Let's remind ourselves. This is why I like recapping. And I do like recapping here when we're looking at the prices of Magic cards. Memory Deluge. Look at the top X cards of your library where X amount of mana spent to cast a spell. Put 2 of them into their hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. You can flash this back for 7. So this thing is going to get you all kinds of card selection. So in the face of Rest in Peace, a card like this gets a whole lot worse. Rest in Peace can also help keep Reenact the Crime and Slogurk Overslime decks in check. In the sense, while Rest in Peace isn't a super pricey reprint by any means, it should be a major standard implication for the foreseeable future. Design teams definitely didn't mess around when it comes to these big score reprint cards. Expect them to play big roles across multiple formats going forward. Recommended. This direly needed $75 reprint has finally been confirmed. Well, this is what we were talking about when we were doing the morning show. This is a card that we identified weeks ago as a reprint target. Let's read the article about it. Players got to look at what would be printed in Magic's newest bonus sheet. The Outlaws of Thunder Junction technically has 2 bonus sheets, but those of you, those but one of those was an epilogue set that got a kiboshed after March of the Machine. Aftermath failed as Aftermath failed as a product, and we're talking about the bonus sheet that was actually supposed to be the bonus sheet in Breaking News. The object of the breaking news sheet is to include a bunch of effects that commit crimes, targeting opponents' stuff and opponents themselves in committing these crimes. The only exception to this is if you're targeting something in their exile. If you couldn't tell, it's pretty easy to commit a crime in the world of Magic the Gathering. A massively variety of effects that all successfully commit crimes, and many of them are quite powerful in their own right. Thoughtseize and Leyline Binding are 2 appearances of the bonus sheet cards that players would play with excitement. Even if they didn't commit crimes, now they're arguably getting even better. While these reprints are great, they pale in comparison to one reprint that was confirmed late yesterday that we've been talking about for a couple of weeks. And talking to you, hold the line on this card. It's going to see a reprint. Some people were convinced that this is an April Fool's joke that doesn't appear to be the case. While preprints and the heavily played cards are fantastic, sometimes the best reprints players can ask for are some niche but expensive cards lost to history. Mindbreak Track is the biggest reprint Magic is needed, and we finally have it. What a great! This is what the reprint looks like. I'm happy to say that we talked about it here about 2 weeks prior, and this Mindbreak Trap is now confirmed to appear in the breaking news bonus sheet, and players are ecstatic. This Magic the Gathering card is a huge one in vintage sideboards like Storm and Mechanics that are rather popular in that format, and have a free counter spell that can shut down an entire stack is incredibly valuable. The traps otherwise sees massive CEDH play, and for some fringe play in Legacy, the counterspell is fantastic for its alternate rate of 0, but it's basically unplayable at 4 mana. Not the case. I've seen many times when people are hard casting Force of Will because they don't have a blue card in their hand. It's late game and you need the counterspell. So for 4 mana, you can always pay the alternative cost. Early in the game, you need that 0 mana cost and that trap effect to go off. This can get it done. Any format that can reliably allow you to cast the trap for 0 mana is a format where this card is going to see play. So Trap sees play in EDH, Vintage, and Sideboards and Fringe Legacy, which is a significant amount of play, but not enough for that justifies this card's ridiculous cost. At the time of writing, the Trap has been $75 and the foil version is $300 a piece. It's also obviously not part of the reserve list, but Trap does see some relevant constructed play. And the big reason this massive value is only particularly due to that. The bigger reason for Mindbreak Track's secondary market value being this massive is that the card is stupidly scarce. At this point, we only have one version of the card, and it was printed in Mythic from 15 years ago. Trap's finally going to become a lot more available to players who want it, and that means that the card is likely to lose a lot of value. While it's maybe annoying for players who currently hold copies of the Storm Counterspell, this is what Magic's best reprints end up looking like. Other fantastic reprints include the Capture of Zinzu, which is essentially Time Warp with a different name. So if you ever wanted to play multiple copies of Time Warp in EDH or CEGH, the Capture of Zinzu, a reprint from the Portal set, is going to get you there. Imperial Seal, Warrior's Oath, and Imperial Recruiter are a couple examples of cards that were reprinted recently that tanked the price of their original printings in those rarer sets. Further proving to this point the presence of the mechanically identical cards that already exist in the game will be much cheaper in price compared to the Capture, Zenzu, Time Warp, and Temporal Manipulation. All these cards are 5-mana blue sorcery with the exact same value that allow you to take extra turns, and that small variations that Time Warp can typically give you extra turns to other players because it says target. Before this, the Capture Zenzu was reprinted. The card was worth about $300, and others are only worth about 12. But the Capture is the cheapest variant, is now about the same. Warrior's Oath is basically the same mechanic as the Last Chance card, and both of these are 2 red sorceries that allow you to take an extra turn. The cost of losing the game afterwards, but the upside is the cards that are rather cheap, extra turn spells. Before this, Warrior's Oath was a $300 to $400 price tag. Now that it's been reprinted, the card's worth $5, and Last Chance is even worth less. So reading this article, it makes me think, how low can the Mindbreak Trap go after this reprint? I think now, I mean, do you want to hold on to it? Maybe it's a sell. I don't have the Mindbreak Trap card, but a good example of this is Cold Snap Foils and the Counterbalance card that I was buying and playing during Legacy when the Miracles deck was popular. It's a card that I finally was able to part ways with. It took a tumble in price when it got banned, when Divining Top got banned. So I've been holding on to it for a couple of years, and I finally vendored it over Christmas. Interesting, there could be some downsides to these reprints, depending on how these reprints are valued for the reprint equity of a Magic the Gathering set. The multi-$100 reprint plummeted to the ground could seriously affect the total cost and the expected value of Magic the Gathering products. If Wizards of the Coast were expecting a card like Capture Zinzu to remain expensive price tag, it's plummeting to $12, for example, could seriously mess up the expected value of Commander Masters packs. This product makes it a lot less desirable for customers. And that said, with these reprints constantly create much needed discounts at scarce cardboard, they always tend to plummet to the ground. Imperial Seal's a decent example of this. And don't get me wrong, the card still has a ton of value, but at $80 is perfectly respectable secondhand market value. A card that I still haven't bought. I never bought Imperial Seal because I got hosed on Imperial Recruiter. When that one got reprinted, I had picked up a Judge Foil copy because I wanted to play it in Goblin Welder, and I had to have a copy of it, and then I got hosed when it got reprinted. So I'm still waiting to see if perhaps I can pick up an Imperial Seal from a newer set later on down the road. I'm holding the line on some of these older niche printings of some of these cards to see maybe I can pick them up at a later date, because it's all the same to me. I just need a copy that shuffles. All depending on how Wizards values these reprints in their products, though, is a large speculation. These preprints stand as being some of the best ones in the overall community. Expensive cardboard in the world of Magic is a given, but scarcity of the overall game piece should not be a larger reason for massive secondary market values. Game pieces, right? You got to get those game pieces into your collection, friends and fans. Magic the Gathering who are hit the Wednesday slump, grabbing a cup of coffee. It's like untapping your lands in the morning. When you get that first cup of coffee, it's like untap, coffee, upkeep, start my day. If you're feeling a little bit landlocked this morning, it's all about finding your flow. Let's let this green mana flow your way and grow the stream and remove any of your Wednesday woes. If you spilled your coffee or you've missed your trigger, remember the best wizards in Magic the Gathering have misplays, and the key is to keep shuffling forward. Besides, who hasn't accidentally turned their alarm off like it was a pesky enchantment going off in the morning? What else we got coming to us from the stock desk? Let's take a look. We got any new articles from the folks over at the stock desk? Not quite. What's that? What's that sound? I think I hear something. That's right. It's time for your movers and your shakers here this morning. Time to move, and it's time to shake in your seats with me this morning, when we take a look at the movers and the shakers on the list and the cards that are moving and shaking and grooving and making earthquakes in the world of Magic the Gathering. Do you like tracking the prices of Magic cards. It's not that hard to join me here on the morning show to get your motor running and get a little positivity in your day when you wake up and get set on your journey. Thanks for joining us, everybody tuning on the stream, Twitter, Twitch, X, and everybody who likes to join in on a little bit of fun. Let's get over to check your movers and the shakers for Wednesday, April 3rd. Have you heard? Our Mind Break Trap getting a reprint. Let's bring this up and get some coffee in our cup. Morning, you goobers. I'll be the biggest goober. Here's your goobers and shakers here this morning. What do we got? Daily Change for Modern. Modern Monday, Tuesday Pioneer, Whopper Wednesday. Of course, Modern, Pioneer, Popper, Whopper Wednesday. Here. What's going on in the world? Movers and shakers. What are the cards that are moving the most? We got Oubliette. J'ai oublié ce que c'est d'être un joueur de carte magique. This is a card that's from the Arabian Nights block. Okay, and we got Ristic Study, Moment's Peace, Kalani Garden, Plant Tokens, hey? Needle Drop. This is a Lorwyn card. Oh, you want to get some fun into your collection, go revisit the old Lorwyn foil. There's some hidden gems in that block, along with Shadowmoor. I've been saying this for years now. I mean, if you ever want to take a trip down memory lane when foils were great, the Lorwyn set and the Shadowmoor set have got plenty of jewels in it. So let's take a look at this card. Ephemerate, the Blink deck. This is a card that's seen play in Legacy, especially in Reanimator, because blinking your Reanimate target seems like a great way to keep it around rather than just until end of turn. Freed from the Real, Red Elemental Blast from Revise, Ancestral Mask, and Vines of Vastwood. Oubliette, all right. Here's an Arabian Nights card. It's a common card, and this one's got a couple of different versions of it from Arabian Nights. It did see a reprint in Double Masters, which will only cost you a couple of bucks, but some of these Arabian Night cards are making their way into play because folks like the original cardboard. This card's a hold. I don't know. I wouldn't spend the 30 bucks if you just want to copy the shuffles. You can get one for $1 or $2. If you're a collector and it's something that you want to get into your collection, or maybe you're creating an Arabian Night set, this card would be a buy. Otherwise, it's a hold, or it's a buy a cheaper version that shuffles. Ristic Study. This is another card that keeps moving. This card will never be bad. Whenever a player plays in a spell, you get to pay one unless that opponent pays. You get to draw a card unless the opponent pays one. This card keeps creeping up in price. Let's look at this sucker. As high as 40, 50 bucks around Strixhaven. Is tipped down to around $35 mark. Now it's starting to see some price retracement, getting a little bit more support here. The Ristic card, never a bad card. Common card for the common working man like Brody. Moment's Peace, a couple of cards that I really want to look at here. This one's a fog effect. For a green and 1, you can fog the board when preventing all combat damage this turn. It lets you flash it back for 1. And the Kalani Garden, here's a card that actually was played, I think, in Amulet. This is a card, you want the plant token. This is like just a chump blocker. When it enters the battlefield tapped, Kalani Garden creates you a 0/1 plant token. It taps for a green, and it's a common card. What's the foil version of this one worth? I think it's actually quite expensive. Yes, the World Wake foil version of this card's 14 bucks. Why? Because the plant token. What's that plant you've been token on? This one here. Yawgmoth, Golgari Gardens, Naya Winota, Exist, Factal Bloom, Thormok, Insatiable, Tatiova, the Benthic Druid, Prosh, the Sky Raider of Kur, and Illuna, the Apex Wishes, Lord Windgraze, and Mathel of the Wild of the Wind. All decks playing it. This is a card that's gotten some support recently with the advent of more plant cards. Plant support. Support your plants. Put a little bit of a post next to it so it can grow. And what's this one? Needle Drop? I want to see the foil version of this card. Lorwyn foils. If you want to take a trip down the gutter and look into the dumpster and find some diamonds, the Lorwyn block is full of foils, and so is the Shadowmoor block that are undervalued. In my opinion, there's plenty to see on some of those lists that can be got for a couple of bucks, and now we're starting to see some of these cards from the older sets like Lorwyn and Shadowmoor, the middle Silver Age of Magic the Gathering that are getting some price attention. This deals 1 damage to any target if it was the target that was dealt damage to this card, and it draws you a card on your turn. Instant speed deals an extra 1. This procs prowess, and it also could be played in an enraged deck where you want to deal some damage to something and get a trigger on it. This card has actually been. What's the price chart look like on it? What's my opinion on this card? Well, the foil version sitting at around $8. I like the Larwin foils and the Shattermore foils. I really do. If you can find this for $4, perhaps this is something that you want to pick up. I myself am fond of them. I would pick them up just for collectability. I've been picking up cards from the Shadowmoor block in foil that are in and around $6 to $8 because in the future they could actually go somewhere. I don't want to break the bank, but if you're playing this card, get the non-foil version. It'll only cost you $1. And then if you were a collector who wants to finish out a set of Lorwyn foils or Shadowmoor foils, well, now may be the time to pick this up before it goes to $8 or $12. Freed from the Reel. This is a card that's played with like the Hidden Strings deck that lets you tap and untap creatures. I think there's a combo that was spoiled with this card that makes it quite good recently. And Red Elemental Blast, the common card from Revise that's worth $4 or $5. These are interesting cards. There's so many copies, and this goes back to all the way the original days of Magic the Gathering, where this card was actually just a common bulk common. We had so many copies of this card that it wasn't even funny. But now he seems to see that like some of these old revised list commons that get some play in Commander and EDH are actually still quite good. Another card that if you haven't considered it in a red deck, that's instant speed. That's even a little bit cheaper. Here's a card, 50 cents. I actually think this card is a buy. This is a buy. I love the Red Elemental Blast, but I think if you want to get yourself something funky from the Legends block, an older piece of Magic the Gathering nostalgia that's long overlooked and most people don't pay any attention to it. The Active Volcano is the same mana cost. It's instant speed and it destroys a blue permanent on the battlefield, and it also returns an island to its owner's hand. So this is another red piece of removal, another blast type card. It's only 50 cents. This one, definitely a buy if you ever wanted to get it. I would rather have a copy of this one. I know there's plenty other versions of this. There's a Chronicles version, the set that crushed Magic the Gathering reprints. The Chronicle version is only worth 25 cents. But the Legends version, some of these Legends commons can actually be quite good. And if you got nostalgia for the game, this card could be one that you want to pick up in your collection for a mere 50 cents. Some spot removal in red going along next to the Red Elemental Blast. Now, why is this card so good? I think it's got an up. It doesn't do a spell that's on the stack, but it does blow up a blue permanent. And like the fact that if you're playing Painter Servant, that colors all of the cards in play a certain color, picking blue with blue Painter is quite a good choice because it turns on Force of Will, and then it makes every permanent on the battlefield blue as well, which makes it an active volcano target. This card seems good. As long as you're trying to blow up permanents on the battlefield, another alternative is a 1 red blast card. That's my pick as a cheaper alternative to the Red Elemental Blast. If you don't want to pay the $4, there's also cheaper versions of it. Ancestral Mass costs you $1.80, and Vines of the Vastwood costing $1.10. I like to see some of these common cards moving in price here. There's definitely some gold in them hills when it comes to Pauper. All right. Well, that's probably about it for today. We're talking about Wednesday. I think a Wednesday is the turn before you untap all your resources. It's just a moment before you're full of mana and ready to go again and ready to cast your most powerful spells for the rest of the week. Navigating this Wednesday is all about strategy, folks. Strategizing your Magic the Gathering finance decisions by picking up cards that are cheap and undervalued and selling cards that, you don't need anymore that may get you a little bit of fun into your collection. Do you ever rush through like a red deck? Better off to pace yourself and take a methodical approach to Magic the Gathering finance. But either way, we've got your back covered until the weekend arrives. One more quick check over at the stock desk to see if we got any news here this morning. And I want to thank you folks for tuning in. Any of the new viewers tuning in out there who like to crack open packs and shuffle up stacks of Magic the Gathering cards, you can always find me, Brody Alfonso, here in the mornings, Monday through Friday, when we discuss the Magic the Gathering world, spoilers, news, events, reprints, possible special interactions with secret layers, cards that are coming to us, and spoils that are humming and making the internet buzz. The coffee's almost empty. It's time to untap my lands and pour another cup. Happy to have you with me this morning. It's Wednesday. It's the middle of the week. It's like grind. 2 more days to go after this before the weekend and Friday Night Magic. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and leave a forward comment in the comment section. It helps the channel grow and it lets us know that you folks are watching. Don't make us use our hockey sticks now, eh? Mounties. Canada is such a silly place. It is. It's the home of the North Pole, Santa Claus, and some weird things that happen up here. Hold on to your hats. The Pinkertons are at the door. We're going to shut this show down. And I hope you guys had a good one. Teaming up with me here this morning. The watch list. It's been great. I'm looking forward to adding some more cards to our lists. Possible reprint targets, cards you want to stay away from, and some stuff that you might have your eye on. Got to pick up the collection. It's going to be interesting to see if we can time it and pick those up before they're too expensive. Have a good Wednesday, everybody. We'll talk to you all tomorrow